most composers, all composers actually, they work from sheet music, which is a visual thing.
Yes.
It has a very visual, almost like Braille. It's actually maybe more difficult to read than Braille, because Braille is the alphabet, but this stuff has...
The complexity is a little bit more.
It's got a lot more difficulty. As much as Braille to some people might be Greek, and you see these little dots for blind people and nobody understands what they are, except blind people. Music is an insider type of thing where if you hadn't studied it, you wouldn't know what you're looking at. We are looking at sculptural objects that are usually somehow interpreted by blind people and through text, but we are trying to now look at them through the eyes of a composer, so that whatever he might see or sense or feel within the sculptural shape that was intended for blind people, in a way becomes audible through music. So to me this was very interesting. The equivalent of sound in visual things. We spoke of that one would have sheet music and that's visual. You look at the sheet music and you find a way to perform it. And it can be written for many instruments or for one instrument. It can be written... Sheet music is a very cryptic form of writing. And so that's fascinated me about music, that it's got this form of writing, which is not really writing, which is a very sophisticated form of writing, the sheet music. And it's visual. But then, as we said, people started performing by adding abstract things into the sheet music, or by making a line that does something and you have to interpret that now. And eventually they landed up making graphics. Drawing with linear, looks sometimes a bit like notes, sometimes very, and then you have to perform that. And as time went on, they started using color, they started using splashes and all sorts of things. Until now you have this huge library, quite a few of them in the world actually, that collect graphic notation, where the notes people play are just like artworks. And
I wonder sometimes about those, the graphic notation. There was a time where it was a very popular thing to do.
Yeah.
And recently I interacted with a few ensembles, mostly from America, and I prepared these interesting graphic notations for them.
Yeah.
And so I gave them lines and dots, and it was planned very well, and I worked with geometric shapes. And I asked them, so would you mind to perform this? And they just simply said no. So I said to them, but why? And their perspective was that you're giving me something and you want me to interpret it. So basically I can make up anything, and conceptually we can try to make a link to that, but in the end it will sound different. It can be anything. And my perception is that performers currently want very specific instructions. They want the composer to know exactly what type of sound do you want, what should it sound, how should the attack be, how loud should it be, and you should rather give them a very detailed score rather than just giving them some framework and let them basically improvise.
Yeah, the world is a big place, and these more controlled, to stick to the original score, or to try and find a way around and bring some elements of surprise, really, because everybody would perform differently on a graphic piece. So you get both of these things still. But music is also the discovery of audible impulses that can be appreciated in color and in shape and in texture. So you see a texture and it helps you to think of or it brings back the memory of something. So I think with the blind alphabet we're trying to look for audible impulse, the things that you look for in music, all the elements of music, in the elements of fine art, in the elements of sculpture, notably in the elements of a particular type of sculpture for blind people.
Yes.
Because they are also deprived of one of the senses. And we are trying, and the sense that they are deprived of is the sense of sight, but they try, in most cases they will compensate by the sense of hearing. And many of them collect music, and they know, some of them know a lot about it, and so I think it's fitting that one tries to put together a package or something.
That was the sense that I missed with the blind alphabet when I first interacted with it, is that people could pick up some of the pieces and they're very interested in the texture, and you have people feeling the weight of a piece. You have people smelling some of the pieces, funny enough, because it's all made out of different wood that has very particular smells. Some people were trying to knock onto some of the works to hear what they sound like, but that aspect of sound is not very much there.
The only way in which earlier on we, in the 1990s, the technology was there, but I didn't have the money to make an effort to bring speakers or some sense of sound to go with the work. So the way we worked was with a braille, and then blind people read it.
Yeah, if you wanted to add the musical aspect, it would have probably been like, have to, as you say, been something recorded with a lot of technological equipment or sound equipment or a live performance.
And in the field of fine art in our country, very few people combined music or audible things with shape and sculpture and structure. So the way I try to help out with understanding of the work was through text and the reading of the text, through people who can't even read, but who can read like you in music, can read sheet music, they read braille.
Correct, yeah.
You need blind people, and that's the work is a bit militant. Without blind people there is no work.
But now with the addition of the voiceover and with the sounds, this has changed. So to some extent the work has served its purpose, but it's now also opening up the work for able-sighted people.
Yeah, the old works will always historically be there because braille's going to go out of.
That's the concern. I mean,
out of use. In not so long now, from now, then very few people or nobody will be able to read braille.
Yes.
So it will be a historical oddity. It will be like something that belongs in another century, actually, literally. But with the addition of new technologies, I think the work can probably reach the end of the alphabet.
I think so it's not only opening it up then for able-sighted people, but also, as you say, with the probability of braille dying away, that people who are visually impaired might still be able to access those works later on, and that they don't necessarily need to read braille, because I think the works are nonsensical if you just interact with them without knowing the concept or the story behind it.
Yeah, ironically, there might now be a time where everybody can benefit, whether you're blind or sighted, just because of the new technology. And braille is now no longer an essential thing. But those people who are still with us, who can read braille fluently, will become like museum characters. They will be they'll be weird people because they have a skill that nobody else has got. So they can play an instrument that has become defunct. Not many works have lasted so long in its making. The work starts in 1990 with the making of, and then 93 with the exhibition. And it's 27 years later now, and we're still making the letter L. And now I'm going to make the letter M, and so I'm going to carry on. And few artworks last that long in its making, in its life, or whatever you. So I think the only reason why it still continues is because there's a demand for it. People want the work. So as long as people will support the effort, I will try for the next letter and see how far I get. And then maybe eventually there might be a need for translation. But the work makes itself. If the work is going to be silly and flop, there will never be a translation. It needs to be strong enough to support itself.
Yeah, but those the concepts and the descriptions support the works, and they tell people what the works are about. Yeah. I often wonder if people really read everything, or if they just read the first 2-3 sentences to get an idea what it's really about. And I'm hoping that with the addition of the music, that it will guide people a little bit into understanding those works in the same way that it was intended. And that's something that I worked with when I created the sounds. Although they are short and concise, they making the statement of the concept, or they're linking directly with that concept. But the blind people like the fact that there are artworks made for them.
Yeah.
That it's specifically that it's someone who wants to accommodate them in an art gallery. It's not even a matter of that it's exhibited at a special place or a random room somewhere that blind people can access. It's exhibited in an art gallery, and blind people can go into an art gallery and they can feel empowered. Well, which was the idea of the work.
I've had the experience of showing it in Brazil, where they speak Portuguese. Mm-hmm. And I've had a Portuguese person who can read English Braille, but who's Portuguese. So she reads the English Braille and then she tells them in Portuguese what it says. I had the experience before last at the Pompidou. And it was shown in Paris, in the middle of the French city, where nobody could read Braille, and there was no blind person, and the work was, everybody came to the work, opened the boxes, and you could see people milling around, and looking at it from different angles. So it became a much more abstract work. Yes. So if there's no blind people involved in the work, if you don't invite them, you don't have to teach them anything, they just have to come. And up till now they should be able to read Braille and speak English. That's how the work came, and then it's understandable, but if they are not there, you'll just see some people milling around and wonder what the hell's going on.
But that's something that bothered me at first when I got this idea to add the voiceovers and to add the music, I was fearing that I might meddle with this whole idea of having the blind people there and empowering them. But it seems to some extent that it might not necessarily be the case. We might help them in the long run, but people will still, able-sighted people might still be even intimidated when they see the works, because the Braille won't be taken off. So they might still wonder if they can actually access these works. Should they open the box? Should they not?
You see, there's also another thing, that when you make an artwork, and especially a work like this, and it's finished, and you stand back and you see you worked hard. Now people come to see the work. Now I set it up with blind people. Say for example, I made a sculpture and I interpreted the planets, Gustav Holst. And you come there and you see, what the hell is this? This looks like a palm tree where the fruits have fallen off. You interpret it. Now I run up to you and I say, no, listen, you mustn't look at it like that. This is how you, this is the sun. And these are the, now as an artist, that is wrong, I think. When you finished an artwork, you should step back. You can't stand next to your artwork for the rest of your life and just wait and see if people are going to think wrong things and interpret it in a strange way, and then help them to see it the way it's. But you should let your artwork speak for itself. And if they want to see the palm trees with fruits falling off, that's their prerogative. So I think the same sort of thing with what we are doing. We can do it in the best of confidence, best of faith, and wait, and then let people do what they do. And if we were wrong, then we run, and if we were right, then we show our muscles. But we can't stand next to the work and slap people around into believing what we put into it. We leave the work alone.
It's the same with composers, actually. Once
you've
composed your work, the sheet music is out there, and you have absolutely no control over how people are going to perform or interpret it. So you have to make peace with the fact that once it's out there, it's out of your hands.
We are servants. We are not instructors of how people should think.
Your works, or your sculptures, felt, for me at least, that they leave very little space for this perceptual idea to link it with the emotions, because you work conceptually. Yeah. So I was more drawn to the conceptual part, especially in Blind Alphabet, of what is the concept in the artwork, and how can that concept then be translated, if you may call it that, into music.
It's formalist, it is structural.
The structure, it gives you structure.
Very, but it's also part of a 20th century type thing. And it belongs in a certain time niche, and it also has to do with consciousness and conscience, that one has some kind of a regard for people who are disenfranchised. So that's another aspect, which came into 20th century art through protest art, and later on there's a lot of politics in art as well.